All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going deep on this idea of raising consciousness.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic for sure.
It is, and we're looking at the work of Hans Wilhelm, specifically his YouTube video. And he uses this interesting analogy, right? A caterpillar in a cocoon
Yeah,
to explain how our ego can limit us, right? How we see the world.
absolutely. Wilhelm's idea is we build these cocoons. They're like walls around us.
Mm,
And the walls are made from all our negative thoughts and experiences. Even like issues from way back, unresolved stuff.
wow.
He describes these walls. He says they're covered in pictures. And each picture represents some unresolved thing. And so we're trapped inside just staring at these reflections of ourselves.
So we're not just dealing with these issues,
Right.
we're like surrounded by them, trapped by them.
Exactly. And our consciousness, Wilhelm says, it's like a beam of light. But it can only illuminate what we're ready to see because of these walls.
It's like we're missing a huge part of the picture.
It could be.
What would you say, like, the biggest takeaway from this cocoon idea is?
Biggest. I'd say it's that we're all in these ego worlds, as he calls them.
Okay.
We're limited by so much. Our past, what we believe, our fears, and all of that really shapes how we see the world.
And then that affects how we connect with other people.
Exactly, yeah.
He gives that example of, like, just having coffee with friends.
Oh, yeah. The coffee date.
To kind of show this.
He describes everyone's just so focused on their own cocoon.
Yeah?
On their own stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're just talking at each other, not really connected.
You're not actually listening.
Right. Like there's one friend talking about a bad experience with MSG.
Oh, yeah, at that Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, and another one's going on about this fancy place.
To a five-star restaurant.
Exactly. And it's just like,
Everyone's in their own world.
totally.
It's like we think we're connecting with people, but are we really? How much of it's just us? Projecting our own stuff onto them.
It's a great question. Like, how often are we really open to what someone's saying?
Yeah.
Or are we just waiting for our turn to talk,
Yeah.
about ourselves?
I know I've done that. Sometimes I realize, wait, I was so in my head during that whole conversation, I wasn't really present.
Happens to the best of us, for sure.
I was physically there, but not mentally. Like I was still in my own cocoon.
Something we can all relate to. But Wilhelm actually offers a way out of this. He talks about unraveling the cocoon,
Right. Breaking free.
expanding our consciousness.
And a big part of that is self-awareness, becoming aware of those pictures, right? The ones on the walls.
Absolutely. Really taking the time to understand our own issues and actually work through them.
But how do we do that? Like, what are the practical steps?
That's where things get really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we'll dig into next time. So before we get into like the how-to of unraveling this cocoon, I'm curious, what really stuck with you from what we talked about?
I think what really hit me was how Wilhelm ties the cocoon to our ability to connect with people. It's like he's saying we can't truly understand others until we understand ourselves.
That's a great point, yeah. It's like imagine trying to see through a dirty window.
Okay. Yeah.
You can't appreciate the view outside until you clean the glass.
Right.
And in this case, the glass is like those pictures on our cocoon.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about unraveling this cocoon. It sounds like it's a very active process. Like it's not just going to happen on its own.
No, absolutely not. It takes real effort to become more self-aware. It's about looking at all those things that make up our cocoon, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, really examining them.
He mentions using something he calls the Christ light, which, I'll be honest, that made me think of religion at first. But I'm guessing there's a more universal way to understand that.
Oh, for sure. Think of it like tapping into the goodness that's already inside us. The love, compassion, forgiveness, we all have that capacity. It's about choosing to focus on that instead of getting stuck in the negative stuff.
So it's not ignoring the negative stuff. It's more like transforming it. That makes sense. But how do we actually do that? Like, becoming more self-aware is one thing, but where do we go from there?
Well, Wilhelm talks about working through those unresolved issues,
Yeah.
right? Those pictures on the cocoon walls.
Yeah.
We have to face them,
Yeah.
figure out what they mean, what they represent, and then find ways to heal.
That could be some tough work, especially if we've been carrying that stuff around for years.
It can be.
Does he talk about any specific techniques or practices?
Not a ton in this particular video, but he does emphasize self-reflection, introspection, Like things like journaling or meditation can really help.
Even therapy, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What I find really interesting is he doesn't just frame this as like self-improvement, you know?
Mm.
He's saying raising our consciousness, it's not just about us, it's an act of love towards other people.
That's a really important point. When we start to break down those cocoon walls, we become more sensitive to other people. We can see beyond the surface and connect with them on a much deeper level.
He even says that people become transparent to us. What do you think he means by that?
I think it's about a change in how we see people. We start to sense their emotions, their motivations, in a way we couldn't before. Like we develop a new sense, almost like intuition, but based on real understanding.
So instead of just seeing their actions, we're seeing the why behind the actions.
Exactly. We see the whole person, and that allows us to connect in a whole new way, with more empathy, compassion, understanding. It's about recognizing that everyone is on their own journey, dealing with their own stuff, their own challenges, their own hopes, even people who seem totally different from us.
It's beautiful, yeah. It makes me think about how much conflict we could avoid if we all approached each other this way.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
If we applied this expanded consciousness to all our relationships, family, friends, work, even strangers,
Wow, yeah.
it could have such a positive impact.
It's almost like he's laying out a path to a more compassionate world.
It is. And it starts with us.
Right.
Each of us taking responsibility for unraveling our own cocoon.
Like anything worthwhile, it takes work.
Yeah.
But the rewards, Wilhelm suggests, they're huge. It's not just about feeling better about ourselves, but creating a better world for everyone.
Exactly. And the best part is, when we expand our own consciousness, we inspire others to do the same. It's like a ripple effect, spreading outwards and changing everything.
This has been so insightful. I'm already thinking about how I can use this stuff in my own life. I'd love to hear from our listeners, too. What are your takeaways from all this? I keep thinking about that caterpillar analogy.
Oh, yeah.
The transformation is just so powerful.
Yeah.
Going from this little caterpillar in a cocoon to this beautiful butterfly.
It's such a perfect metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Really gets at what Wilhelm's talking about. The caterpillar doesn't stay stuck. It changes, becomes something totally new, able to experience the world in a whole new way.
And that's what he sees for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Breaking free from those limitations and becoming something more.
Exactly, yeah. And it's not just about us changing as individuals. It's about how that change affects everything around us. Remember those friends at the coffee shop?
Yeah.
What if they could step out of their cocoons?
Yeah.
How would that change things?
Well, I imagine they'd be more curious about each other. I mean, instead of just waiting to talk, they'd actually listen, try to get where the other person's coming from.
Yeah, and then with that understanding, they could connect on a deeper level.
Yeah.
They might even find some common ground they never realized was there, just because they were so focused on their own stuff before.
It's amazing to think how just shifting our awareness can have such a ripple effect.
It's powerful, yeah. It touches our relationships, our communities, even society.
So for our listeners who are inspired to raise their own consciousness, where should they start?
Well, we talked about self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Paying attention to those thoughts and feelings that pop up, especially the negative ones, the limiting beliefs. Just notice them.
Like becoming an observer of our own minds.
Exactly. And from that place of observation, then you can start digging a little deeper, looking at those pictures on your cocoon, What are those unresolved issues? What are those hurts and beliefs that are holding you back?
Okay, and once we've identified them, then what?
That's where that Christ light idea comes in,
Yeah.
tapping into that love, that compassion, the forgiveness we all have inside.
Mm.
And then we can use that to heal old wounds and actually transform those negative patterns into something positive.
So we're not beating ourselves up. We're approaching those parts of ourselves with kindness.
Exactly. And remember, this is a journey, not a quick fix. It takes time, patience, and you have to keep showing up for yourself.
Any tools or practices you recommend?
Oh, there's tons of great stuff out there.
Her.
Journaling, meditation, even just being in nature can be really helpful.
And if someone's struggling, therapy is always a good option.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually a sign of strength to ask for help.
I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Imagine what the world would be like if we all committed to expanding our consciousness, to seeing past our own limited views and connecting with each other from a place of real understanding.
It's a beautiful vision, and I truly believe it's possible.
It all starts with each of us doing that inner work.
Becoming the change we want to see.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as insightful as we did. And until next time, keep exploring.